They're saying that it appears that all the people who died in their homes in basement apartments. 23 people died in New Jersey. Nearly 500 flights canceled today out of New York City metro airports here. Some of those airports were rendered useless yesterday, especially Newark. We had water and escalators, and in the baggage claim, the control tower was evacuated. Not to mention, Alex, they had all vehicles off the roads in New York just for emergency vehicles, and the subway system was compromised as well and shut down.
Yeah, I mean, we had widespread problems, major problems. When we look at the stats, you can understand why. I mean, we see the videos and you're going, how could there be that much rain across the New York City area? Well, when we calculate roughly how many gallons of water fell on the 5 boroughs of New York City, ended up with an answer of about 30 billion gallons of water. That is enough water to supply the entire city with drinking water for 1 month. Think about all the people the size of New York City. 1 month worth of drinking water fell over the city just yesterday. And it wasn't throughout the day. It was over just a few hours. So a lot of rain coming down in a very short period of time with nowhere to go. We look at the rainfall totals. South Plainfield had 9 inches of rain, over 7 inches in Central Park there in New York. Newark, nearly 8.5 inches, over 7.5 inches in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Harrisburg picking up 6.5 inches, and even 4.8 inches coming down in the Baltimore area. So getting down into the mid-Atlantic, we had some very high totals as well. We look at that footprint stretching along the 95 corridor. That's where the worst of the rainfall came, with many areas within that 5 to 8 inch range. So again, you're talking about a landscape that was saturated, a landscape that saw so much rain very quickly, and also a landscape that's got a lot of pavement, a lot of people, a lot of roadways. And so that even worsens our flood problem. River gauges in flood stage, you can see stretching from parts of Maryland all the way up into southern New England, and that includes the Schuylkill River that at Norristown, Pennsylvania, crested at its highest level earlier. It has gone down, so as Mike pointed out, flash flooding gets the name for a reason. It moves up very quickly, but it also goes down rather quickly, cresting at 26.85 feet there at the Schuylkill River. Mike?
Well, we know that New Jersey saw floods and it saw tornadoes, including this one, the EF3 tornado in Mullica Hill, New Jersey, just across the river from Philadelphia. Look at that. That is a monster. That looks like something we would see across the Midwest or the Plains, right? Not New Jersey. In fact, one of the strongest tornadoes to strike New Jersey in the last 70 years. We had less than a handful of tornadoes of this strength in New Jersey since 1950. So this certainly was an oddity, a rare occurrence. And look at the damage here coming right through this neighborhood. Well-built framed homes here, missing second stories, debris strewn just about everywhere you look here, as a narrow path came right through this neighborhood at least, and look at the side of this one. Roof torn off, and the side's just been sheared right off. You see kind of the juxtaposition here of the tornado itself, an intense spin, and then the damage there on the right-hand side of your screen, as well as some of those homes may end up being total losses. Well, meteorologist Jen Carfagno, she has been in Mullica Hill, New Jersey since last night when the tornado struck. She spoke with one resident today about what she experienced during and after the tornado.
This is one of the homes really significantly damaged by the tornado in Mullica Hill, New Jersey. You can see a significant portion of the roof was removed. The entire left side of the house completely gone, and you can see into the house. You can see the couch, you can see the inside, you can see the clothes still hanging on the rack and the shoes still on their shelves. Now, a lot of neighbors woke up this morning in the light of day to really get the full scope of the damage. Some of the neighbors walked around the neighborhood, checking on others and looking for things of their own. Here's what one had to say.
We didn't really hear too much until our house was shaking, and I just was in disbelief because this is our neighborhood. These people are my friends, and just to see that house that was leveled, my kids' best friends, our good friends, I initially just thought like we lost them.
And this is why she was surprised. Look at what happened to her house. So you can see how significant the damage, almost completely leveled, at least 2/3 of it completely leveled. But the family was able to seek safe shelter in the basement, and they came out okay. I saw the mom over here earlier today, actually looking at her home. So a lot of emotions, no doubt, here, but certainly everyone safe in Mulligan Hill, New Jersey. I'm Jen Carfagno.
Yeah, more than anything else, that's the takeaway here, right? Everyone is safe. A lot of homes here in this part of the country have basements, and often a very safe place for you to go during a tornado, especially when you consider the intent of some of these tornadoes. Now, an update on the Mulligan Hill tornado. Now, with preliminary winds of 150 miles per hour, a strong EF3 tornado, but we now have 7 confirmed tornadoes here around Philadelphia, and the next strongest one being an EF2 near Fort Washington with winds of 130 miles per hour. Over the past 24 hours, it has been a barrage of tornadoes. It has been wind. It has been flash flooding. Of course, in Mulligan Hill, extensive damage. You saw it there in the pictures here. And numerous storms that ripped on through here. And then, once the storms got to around Philadelphia, up through Trenton, then really started coming down for us here. All the red dots that you end up seeing on your map here, those are places where tornadoes ended up touching down. Then you see a little spot where you have raindrops, there we had big rainfall and flood reports, and you see some wind icons down there where we had some wind damage. So it really was a tragic event that unfolded for us here through D.C., up through Maryland, and then up through eventually New Jersey as well. But Alex, more surveys will be done. I think the number of tornadoes that we saw yesterday will continue to climb.
Some really strong tornadoes there. A very scary situation for the families that were affected. And Louisiana still dealing with issues from Ida. Of course, this was Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall on Sunday, right around noon. Now, that line of cars that you're looking at, that is people waiting to get gas. According to Gas Buddy, about half the stations in and around New Orleans are out. You need gas to keep the generator going, to keep the car fueled. A lot of times after the storm, the car kind of becomes your lifeline. You can go in, plug the cell phone in, let it charge, get a little AC from it as well. And the Weather Channel's meteorologist Jordan Steele is live in West Wego outside of New Orleans. And Jordan, understandably, people start to get more anxious, start to get a little bit more testy now as the days wear on. Being without power, being hot is absolutely miserable.
It takes a lot of composure, you know, and it really does take, it's a village type, atmosphere. You need an entire village to kind of push everybody forward. Positivity is going to play a huge role in getting us to overcome, the barrier that is the lack of power, potentially the lack of food for some of you. I know they've got stations around the New Orleans area where they've got supplies for you. And, we're just kind of playing the waiting game as to when power will be restored. You get the AC back on and things slowly work their way back into some kind of normalcy. But I want to basically describe the why this all happened, especially in New Orleans, is we have this big, large metal tower that ended up crumbling. And I want to show you one thing first, and then we'll show you the tower. On the other side of this berm is the Mississippi River. So we're on the south end of that. And on the other side, you see the top of one of those towers that has 8 transmission lines that runs into Orleans Parish to help power that entire community, right? All the way to the city of New Orleans as well. But then you come to the other side of the Mississippi River, and this is Jefferson Parish. And this is where we had the tower crumble. Now remember, these things are 400 feet high. And so you've got an unobstructed wind coming in from Hurricane Ida, that Category 4 strength, that is just battering that metal. And over time, obviously, this one crumbled. And because this crumbled, now we're looking at the smaller power lines crumbling. You got a lot of stuff hanging down here, and they've done what they can to put tape, and you've got police officers marking off specific areas. But I wanted to give you some perspective from this view, because it really kind of shows you some of these big wires I'm talking about. And that's what runs over into the Mississippi. And actually, unfortunately, it's underneath the water right now. But it's these thicker wires that have dropped down and unfortunately has caused additional power outages because of it. And you just got to think what those conditions were like when that happened. I look at these, these big cranes that are used for these large shipping container boats. What were they doing in the wind? Anyway, so it just has my mind just kind of going into complexities of these storms and these hurricanes. And of course, as we just learned, within the last 24 to 48 hours, it's not just a coastal thing. So yes, we're still getting reports here in Louisiana, but we know the impact as it worked its way all the way up through the mid-Atlantic and unfortunately into New England, where we have had tornadoes and just torrential rainfall. So Mike, I'll send it back to you, but I'm hoping that we have at least a few answers for some folks. I'm going to get a real quick answer from Ron West. He's an operations president of Entergy. That'll be coming up in just about 30 minutes. So that'll be when we come back.
Yeah. Looking forward to that, Jordan. Thank you so much for the update there. We got a long way to go before things get better, that's for sure. want to show you, because power's really been one of the bigger issues that we've been dealing with around New Orleans, at least. Take you back prior to the hurricane. Nighttime shot, lights are on. Ever a vibrant city. Here's where Jordan is, right here in West Wego. Look at downtown, looks great. French Quarter, Gentilly, Metairie International Airport, all looking good and lit up because we have electricity. And then after the hurricane hit, it was the lights out again. This is where Jordan is stationed. And then slide reports, there's no electricity at all. Some has been restored to parts of downtown, nothing in the French Quarter, and power has been restored to the airport, parts of Elmwood, but a lot of neighborhoods right now still do not have power. And we look at some of the before and after satellite pictures. It tells a story as well. This is in Golden Meadow, close to the landfall location. Looks really nice beforehand, afterwards, an absolute mess, all kinds of debris. One thing that you'll really notice are the boats and the barges that are in the canal here, and they're blocking stuff, they're damaged, they're all over the place, right? How about the before images in Galliano? One of the places where we recorded some of the higher wind gusts from Hurricane Ida. Everything looks fantastic, doesn't everything in order. Afterwards, roofs been removed from homes here, a lot of debris that's strewn through, trees that have been knocked over, a lot of damage here and a lot more cleanup to be done. Here in Fouchon here, this is a landfall location. Some of these canals here, it's really low lying. We have, a lot of storm surge damage here, a lot of wind damage because we got hit so hard by the core of the hurricane itself. And I will say this, there is some damage, but I'm surprised to see how many homes are still in pretty good shape here. The roofs are still on those homes. Some of them may have been flooded, but I think because of some of the building codes that we have in this part of the state, where you have hurricane straps on roofs and those types of things, that didn't compromise many of these buildings and take their roofs off, Alex. So in that regard, things are working.
Absolutely. It doesn't look as bad as we may have expected. Now, Dr. Nab, we are headed to the peak of hurricane season here within a few days. So a lot of people are wondering